All right, so we've got Ty Grandison. This is Flawed Reality, Ty, isn't it?
It is, definitely. We're all living in a fake world.
Well, so there's actually some truth to that, right? I mean, that's why we kind of have these things, you and I, these conversations. This time, rather than kind of helping folks with additive measures, let's be slightly reductive and say, wait, hold on one second. Let's pause. Let's reflect.
Yeah.
Let's just see where we are for a minute. And so why the need to pause and reflect?
I mean, so we have to pause and reflect because we've been through the cycle of technology hype and technology deployment, and then 20, 30 years in wondering, how do we miss this obvious unintended consequence from these technologies being deployed? And I find we're in the same spot with artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science, predictive analytics, like whatever the nom de plume, the nom de jour that you're using right now, that your company is deploying. Like, we should just like take a stock of like what really is happening and what really is going on in the AI ML sort of deployment and development spaces.
So what's going on, Ty?
Well, you obviously, if you've known this, you've probably seen, well, if you're alive and breathing, that, you know, VCs are investing like I think that number was $27 billion year over year in,
give or take.
Yeah, in AI new developments. So that's like globally. And then you have every other company coming up is an AI machine learning company. And, you know, everyone is saying that you can apply it almost ubiquitously. You can apply it everywhere for everything. The problem is this, like, it's all lies. I mean, at this point, there are a few companies that are doing AI machine learning. You know, you can name them. It's what people call FANG, right? You know, the Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google's of the worlds. And, you know, maybe a few of them are not even doing it that well. And what you need to recognize...
Why you left out Apple, by the way, right?
Well, yeah. It could be a FAANG, yes.
Indeed, yeah.
So the beautiful thing about this is just like at the very core, like machine learning is a field that has been an overnight success over the last like 2-3 decades.
Exactly.
And it's basically premised on the fact, you know, the different algorithms, whether it's supervised or unsupervised, whether it is reinforcement learning or deep learning or some other like specialized genre that you're looking at, is dependent upon lots of data, right? And at the very end of it, you basically have a mathematical, well, statistical algorithm, a statistical model, some deep math that works on some inputs that give you an output, right? And it gives you an output with a ranking, with a percentage, with a probability. And that means that you have to get really comfortable with the fact that, one, not all applications are going to be suited for application or no, for use in a particular environment. Not all the algorithms, statistical algorithms, are going to be relevant for your business. So just by that, just by looking at it at like the pure concept level, you know that machine learning and AI can be applied everywhere. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, they could, but not necessarily for you. And they could, but not necessarily for you right now. So conceptually, there might be some truth to the statement that it could be applied as a panacea, but not necessarily based on the data that you have, the structure of that data, et cetera, et cetera. Am I onto something?
Yep, you're onto something exactly. Like the way your current business is actually built, the way you currently operate, the state of your data, you may not be ready for AI or machine learning, right?
Oh, you're taking the ball away. You're taking the ball away and you're walking home right now, Ty. Everyone is very disappointed that's watching this.
You have a ball in the first place.
Why is this a sports metaphor? What I'm saying is that everyone is very excited, right? Especially, of course, everyone that's watching this on the AI and Intelligent Automation Network. I want to do AI right now. You know, I want to do it as much as possible. How can you speak to that person's kind of inner, hopeful kind of technologist, that inner data scientist, and say, this is how you can do whatever you can do right now?
So
let's start to look at your data sets, right?
be honest about it. Yeah, do a really good and really critical self-assessment. Like, look at the questions that you're trying to answer, first of all. Like, what objective are you trying to either optimize towards, right? And then figure out, like, do you have the data that supports that? Figure out if your operations are structured in such a way that supports you using AI. Figure out if you have the people that have the necessary experience and skill sets to actually help you along that path. Like, but do it honestly. Don't say, oh, we have this and we have that, and because we have this really smart person in a corner cube, he can actually like leverage this for us. No, that's not how it works. And be really comfortable with the fact that if you don't understand the core concepts behind it, you're gonna have to hire somebody that does, and to you it's gonna be a black box. And it's gonna be a non-deterministic black box, which means that it's not gonna be, a for sure yes or no. It's gonna be I am 70% confident that this may happen. And it may or may not be true depending upon the state, accuracy, freshness, reliability of your data, right? So
how do I meet the pace of change, the perceived pace of change? With what you're talking about, it sounds like running through, trying to make my way through molasses, right? How do I report to the board, report to the street, report to my consumers, whoever, these stakeholders, and let them know, yes, I'm on the case, but this is what I'm doing and this is why it's a good idea.
Perfect. So figure out what your strategy is in terms of your mission. Where do you want to go? Questions you want to have answered. 2, figure out what your data governance, your data quality strategy is, and execute on that in support of your mission and goals. 3, figure out what your training plan is to make sure that not only the people that are technical and on the execution side are comfortable and familiar with probabilistic kind of reasoning and decision making, but that the executives are also comfortable with like the limits and the capabilities of what AI and machine learning are. All right, once you've done those 3 things, you've shown that you grasp the full breadth of what this field has to offer, and you're doing it responsibly, right? And then you have to bring the people in that will know how to transition you from your current state to the new state that you want to be in, because that in itself is a full-time job.
So I think I hear what you're saying. What you're telling me to do is what my job is currently, and the technology is different.
All right. Well,
is that about right?
You have an amazing job, and you're going to have this job for at least a decade.
There you go. Yeah. The technology is the technology. Do the same thing you've been doing for the past 20, 30 years.
Yep, I completely agree. I mean, the other thing is just like, I find it's, and this is observations from the field, right? I find it's really good to say I'm doing this AI project. But when it comes to actually companies that have AI systems in production, and recognizing that, it's primarily heavily data driven, and that everything in life changes. Your data, your clients, everything. And there needs to be some sort of a monitoring system in place that allows you to figure out when your particular model or your AI is not working and you need to actually update it, right? So be okay with change and build into your production environments. How do you make sure that your AI systems actually are evolving?
There you go. And again, the pace of change gets shorter and shorter. So, you've been, doing this for 20, 30 years, if you're an EVP, SVP of whatever, and when things are not working. So measure quicker and change.
I mean, even better, like if you've done it correctly, you should have key performance metrics that your AI systems are monitoring constantly to see if they're within a certain threshold. And once it actually gets beneath that threshold, that's when you start, getting alerts to the necessary people that something needs to get done, something needs to be retrained, something needs to actually be reevaluated, right?
Yeah. Well, and one quick final point from my side of things. Unlike you, Ty, who actually has to do this stuff, it's very easy for me to sit here and pontificate because I don't have to do any of it, right? So it's easy, very easy for me. And so apologies if I sound flippant. But I think it's because your point, I'm trying to vocalize your point or support your point, which is pause, reflect, hold on, folks. This is, you know how to do this. It's just that the technology is different.
Yep.
Right?
The other thing that we brought up at the very beginning was the fact that, we have this cycle. We're in the cycle. We're caught up. We're excited. It's just like it's not the romance, the dating section of any good relationship, where everything is like young and new, and you just, nothing is ever going to go wrong, right? And then those things that you thought were cute are no longer cute, like a year in, 2 years in. And then some things that were done that you kind of like let slip have further consequences that you don't like. I mean, it's the same cycle that we went through with software engineering. It's the same cycle that we're currently going through. And like, just to point out the fact that there are multiple different chasms that are actually being built in the AI machine learning kind of spaces that we just need to think really deeply about and try to address. Like, the first is, and no, I'm not throwing shade at you, Seth, but there's a gender inequality gap that's actually building in AI, right? Where
I agree with you. So I guess I've avoided the shade.
You probably have. Again, we're two men on this. Yeah, so it's fine.
Well, that's true. Exactly. We've got some of what you're talking about covered with the two of us, but still there is a gender problem here. There's an age problem here because we're the same age as well.
Yep.
Or similarly aged, at least.
So, you find that 80% of the professors of AI are men. Mm. Find 75% of the people that are undergrads or grads are men. You find, if you look around, that most people that are applying to AI jobs are men, like 71, 72%. You find that there is a divide between the incomes of like the senior machine learning engineers and the people that do data labeling. And, all good supervised learning algorithms require tons of labeled data. And on one end of the spectrum, you have people making like $175, $150 an hour to label data. And you have people that are senior machine learning engineers that are men making $1 million a year, right? So like there are multiple disparities that we're creating this environment, multiple side effects that are happening based upon us not thinking holistically about the data lifecycle. And our response tends to be, not the most productive, right? So for example, if we uncover that, there's bias exhibited, if an algorithm tells you that there's a bias in your hiring decisions, in your pipeline, as was the case at Amazon, don't just scrap the system and actually go back to human decision making. You're just saying that we're going to hide the bias even further, right? The correct way of thinking about it would be, these algorithms show you exactly like the state of your data. So use that as feedback and figure out what measures or metrics you need to include to make sure you can improve it. It's the same thing that we see right now with everything I'm talking about, with income, with gender. It's just all there on multiple different levels. And I'm afraid of what's going to happen in like 10, 20 years when we look back and it's just like, oh, we didn't really know this is going to happen. It was just, hubris, and, as par for the course, we were in the honeymoon phase, and now we just got to fix this or stick with what we currently have. Right?
And so I just want to be clear here, and we'll finish with this. Your point isn't about greater society. Greater society can make its own decisions about what is going on with that. But if you're in charge of the artificial intelligence initiative at your organization, you have to take care of the bias issue there, right? Forget about society and whatever happens with income and inequality and all that. At least deal with your shop. Is that fair, Ty?
In your shop, there is way too much for you to deal with, so just deal with your shop.
That's it. Ty Grandison, I can't wait to talk to you again. These are too much fun. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Seth. It's been a joy.